Last week, I was walking my dog down the main street of my city when there was an older gentleman talking on the phone, and I overheard him saying something about along the lines of how the younger generation just has it easy, and we just take everything for granted. I couldn't help but laugh at that because I'd heard people talk about that, but I'd never experienced it in my life. I just thought it was kind of one of those things that everybody has said that they've heard, but nobody really has. And I heard it that day. And I couldn't get it out of my mind when I got home. And I started just thinking about like, how bad is it actually for the younger generation? Is it as bad as they say it is, or are we just kind of blowing it up? We've been entering an era of cost of living increasing with the rising home prices, education prices, and especially now with the gas prices increasing, the wages just aren't keeping up. With all these financial burdens, working for a boss who just sees you as a number has made all of these rewards of hard work just obsolete. It's led an entire generation to ask, what is the point? Why am I working for somebody who doesn't care about me, who just sees me as another number? Like, it's just, what is the point? Now let's start with income. If you ask the older generation why young people are struggling, the answer is usually a variety of they don't work hard enough or they buy too much coffee. But the data just tells a completely different story. The truth is millennials and Gen Z are the most educated generation in history, but that education has come at an astronomical cost. Young adults have been entering the workforce saddled with historic levels of debt, only to find a job market where wages have just fundamentally stagnated. When accounting for inflation, the purchasing power of the average paycheck has barely moved in decades, while the cost of essentials like healthcare, education, food, and rent have skyrocketed. When you're putting 50% of your income towards rent and another 20% towards paying off your student debt, the idea of saving money for a rainy day, it's not possible. The struggle to save isn't due to a lack of discipline. It's a systematic failure. The buffer that previous generations had, that disposable income at the end of the month, it's been completely eaten by the baseline cost of living. Because young people haven't been able to afford life outright, they're forced to finance it. You're seeing interest rates of 7%, 9%. Some people, when they're buying a car, they get an interest rate of 20% or higher. I mean, come on. Like, that's ridiculous. People can't afford that. Yet, they're still giving them out because what are the other options? I mean, some people need cars to get around, go to work. They don't have the public transportation. My city is one of those. My city doesn't have a train. They don't have buses. If you don't have a car, you're either Ubering or you're just not getting to work. These companies have been taking advantage of the average American by allowing these buy now, pay later schemes where it's offering 0% financing when in reality it's not. They get you hooked on this one transaction that you can do 0%, and then after that it's 1%, 2%, and it increases. And when you're using this buy now, pay later to go to Chipotle and get a burrito, it's mind-boggling that someone has to finance buying a $10 burrito. Well, I say $10, it's most likely 20. But even then, it's ridiculous. Now I can say all this, but let's actually take an example from my hometown. The minimum wage in my city is $7.25 an hour, the national minimum wage. Let's give the company I'm working for, say the benefit of the doubt and say they're paying me $15 an hour, which is highly unlikely. If I'm working 40 hours a week on average, that's $2,400 a month or $30,000 a year. If I work 50 weeks in a year, the rent price in my area is around $937 a month or $11,244 a year. That leaves me with $18,756 a year or $1,563 a month. On average, I'm spending $450 a month on groceries, and that's the national average. That leaves me with $1,113 a month. My car loan is around $650, as is the average in my state. Adding the average healthcare of $3,154 per year leaves me with a net negative balance of $2,691 per month. And that's just a conservative estimate. I didn't include phone bills, electricity, or any other expenses that I may have. Now, if there's one single thing that I could point to that would shatter the faith of Gen Z and millennials going into this economy of this stagnation, it would be housing. I mean, like even myself, housing is it's just not doable. Real estate has historically been the primary way that the middle class builds wealth. You buy a starter home, you build equity, and then you upgrade. But what happens when these starter homes just go extinct? As we can see, the home prices have continued to outpace wages at a record rate that has never been seen before. Institutional investors, private equity firms, and a severe lack of new construction has turned housing from a fundamental human need to just a speculative asset class that only the richest of the rich can invest in. And these people who are needing these homes simply just cannot afford it. Can't afford to finance, can't afford to buy outright. For the average millennial and Gen Z, it just seems like a late throw in a game of rock, paper, scissors. For someone in their early 20s or even going into their 30s, going into this housing market, it just feels like that they're going into a cheated system where they're never going to win. And these prices that they can't pay are only benefiting the top 1% of the top 1%. And all of this culminates into financial nihilism. It's a belief that the system is so heavily rigged against you that fighting against the system is just pointless. Instead of saving for a house that they're never going to be able to afford, the younger generation are choosing to go on these vacations, spend extravagant money that they don't have because they have this instant gratification need because they think that they're not going to get ahead in life, so they might as well just do it now. They're choosing to live in the present because the American dream that they've been promised has been a lie that they've been told as children. During the 2008 financial crisis, millennials were the ones who watched their parents lose their home, their retirement accounts got sliced in half, while the bankers who caused this crisis were the ones who received these taxpayer bailouts and multi-million-dollar bonuses. And Gen Z grew up in the aftermath of that. Entering the economy during a global pandemic that saw once again these massive corporate bailouts while everyday people struggled caused this sort of deep foundational loss of trust in these traditional financial sectors and the market as a whole. And these millennials and Gen Zers who are seeing these big Wall Street firms, they just see them as a casino. And especially with these politicians nowadays who are obviously going into insider trading and making these deals at the expense of millions of people, you can sort of see and relate, know that these aren't just speculations from people. They're real things that are happening around us. And it's hard to ignore them. And so this massive decay of trust has fueled radical outbursts in these financial markets. It's why we saw the GameStop short squeeze. It's why cryptocurrency, NFTs, and alternative assets have become so popular. Because these traditional markets, they're just not trusting in them. And these are for valid reasons. When the traditional path to wealth are mutual funds, ETFs, it just feels like it takes too long. And these younger generations don't feel like they have the time or the patience to allow this to happen. They don't want wealth 30 years in the future because they're not even sure if they're going to be around in 20 years to have a home, have other accounts and sources of income. They're worried about their next week's paycheck because they should be. With these instant gratifications, they're turning to these high-risk, high-reward plays, side hustles, and just this decentralized finance that they see as alternative investments when these alternative investments turn out to be schemes and fraud, which I'm not saying all of them are. There's a lot of them who are very safe and they are reliable and they are proven time and time again to do a return and are not scams. A lot of these newer ones are, and they're preying on these younger generations who are very vulnerable in this time of just upheaval. Now I want to transition a little bit. There's never been a time in history where there have been so many retail investors into the market. And some of these institutional investors are saying this is bad. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have this capacity of knowledge that they have as an institutional investor to make these wise decisions. That's just simply not true. While it is a good thing, there are also things that aren't good about it, like what they're investing in. On average, 6 out of 10 millennials and Gen Zers that are in the stock market are invested in AI balloon stocks. They're trading based on buzzwords and speculation rather than these detailed analyses and guidance from others. The others are in meme stocks, get their advice from Wall Street bets, or put everything into crypto. And I say others, but I'm exaggerating a little bit. I mean, a lot of the time, these things that are being bought or traded are by people who have fallen into these schemes and these ideas. And that's not everybody. And I want to stress that, because the people who aren't doing these things and they're putting their money into these mutual funds, these passive ETFs, safe growth ones, or these fixed income investments, or going to a reputable financial advisor, these are what these people should be doing. This is what I'm doing. And this is what I encourage you to do. I've always been told this, and I'm sure you have too, but to drill a point home, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And in a lot of cases with these new NFTs and these cryptos and these meme stocks, it is too good to be true. Always do your research into these things. You don't want to put money into a meme stock and then the next day it's going to crash. And then the next month it crashes even farther because you heard from a friend of a friend of a friend that, hey, invest in this moon coin. It's going straight to the sky. When in reality, it goes to the sky for them who are already in these coins. And for you, you lose all your money because of it. I know that you can see that my shirt has changed. I look a little bit different. I sat down and I wanted to think about this more before I wrapped up this video. I know I've said a lot of nihilistic things about what's going on with the economy and with the younger generation, but I don't want to make you depressed. What's going on right now is something that's never been seen before. Technology is increasing exponentially with the use of AI and just people being innovative nowadays. We're in a better time than ever to get into the market, to learn about these things, because we have the information available to us. You have the internet, you have AI, you have books, you have everything at your disposal. And I encourage you to use these things. Don't fall into the trap of, oh, it's not going to happen, so I might as well just not try. You never know until you do. And doing these things can really build wealth and have a huge impact in your life. There's been so much political battles going on right now with the current administration, the administration previously. It's important to participate in these events, but don't do it radically. Be a moderate, go into these things with an open mind, and just remember that you're there to learn and not there to argue and attack other people. Now, I want to thank you for watching. It took me a long time to put this video together, so I hope you like it. Please like and subscribe, and thank you.